Hello, today I have the pleasure of making the video for Judges 16. Samson continues his good little Nazarite streak by immediately sleeping with a prostitute in this chapter, and then the guards in the city's gate were planning to kill him, except then he decided to just pull the 2-story tall guard tower and gate out of the ground and haul it up a hill. We can really only assume that killed the guards because he pulled the major support beams for the gate out and dragged them away, so the entire 2-story structure would just crumble to the ground. And then Samson falls in love with another Philistine woman who is now being paid to figure out the source of his power, because the Philistines have seen him kill numerous different people of the Philistines multiple different times, and mostly in large groups, so obviously they're terrified of him and they want him gone. There's then a series of 3 lies that he tells Delilah about where his strength comes from. The first one is 7 fresh bowstrings, and according to my study notes, these strings are weaker than dried aged strings, which shows Samson's contempt and low opinion of his enemies, because he's telling her that his weakness is something that is weaker than dried aged old string. Then the second lie that he tells is new ropes. The men of Judah had previously found this useless, so Samson is again mocking his enemies by saying, I know this doesn't work, but that means I'm going to tell you something that doesn't work. So if they try something like they did before, it's not going to work. The third lie is 7 locks of his own hair, and it's getting closer to the truth, and you'd think by now Samson would catch on to the fact that these 3 different times he was attacked by the Philistines would coincide with the 3 different weaknesses that he told Delilah, but he hasn't learned from any of his past mistakes, and he just keeps telling her things. And then the 4th time is when Samson finally tells the truth that it is his hair, because he has been a Nazarite to God from his mother's womb. If his head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. So he actually tells her the truth, and Delilah can tell that he has, as verse 18 says, he had told her all of his heart. So then Delilah does what she had been doing, after every single other confession that Samson had, and she goes to the Philistine lords and says, hey, this is his weakness. So that night, it says that Delilah, makes him fall asleep on her knees, I believe? Yeah, she made him sleep on her knees, the beginning of verse 19. And that's when the Philistines come in, cut off his hair, gouge out his eyes, and bind him as they imprison him in Gaza. Verse 19 says his strength leaves him, and verse 20 implies that the Lord left him as well, which would make sense because God is the source of his strength, so once God leaves him, the strength leaves him also. It's not that his strength was kind of completely separate, because God was with him up until the point where his entire Nazarite vow was just done. Because it took this long for him to break all 3, which seems surprising given how irreverent Samson was of the other parts of his Nazarite vow up until now. And then the Philistines keep Samson chained between 2 pillars, and they brag to their God they captured him. Samson calls out to God one last time to give him strength, and in an act of sacrifice, Samson uses this God-given almighty strength to be able to bring down the house, killing both him and 3,000 Philistine men and women. After that, his brothers come down and bury him in his father's tomb. And this kind of shows how once we got from Ehud and, what were the other early judges? Death of Joshua, Othniel, Ehud, and the third one was Shamgar. How they were mostly good and mostly following God's law, and how we've just slowly gone down the descent down to Samson, where he did good things for God, but it was also intermingled with a whole lot of bad things for God, where it was just his rage was used for a lot of bad and just a lot of senseless murder. And the cycle of the judges has just been progressively getting worse and worse and worse. And we're getting towards the end of this constant cycle of repentance, fixing, peace. There were 3 separate times during Samson's reign where it's that he did something and then there was peace for 20 years. And it seems like we're nearing the end where a king is going to be needed, because without Israel having a king, there's just violence upon violence upon violence. Thank you for watching.